All right, we have a show now. All right, hey everybody. We are getting started here. Welcome to B2B Hour. This is a live monthly webcast series that we facilitate for B2B marketing and sales professionals. So that includes business leaders, owners, entrepreneurs. If that's you, you are in the right place. Today is Wednesday, April 13th, 2022. I am Ryan Girardi, your gracious host, and thank you for joining us. So our general theme for the show, just overarching, is how to stay connected and engaged with customers, strategic partners, and employees, which is really key, and your employees as well. So we offer a truly unique product here on AutoConversion for you to do these things. And so we invite you here to learn and to network and to grow both your personal and your professional brand, grow your network and grow your online reputation. You'll also hear me use the term your public relations strategy. Today, our focus is on the tech stack that's behind your content marketing strategy. So effectively, we'll be looking at the content marketing strategies of a few different content creators. And specifically, we're going to be looking at the tech stack behind those efforts. For instance, did you know that, I apologize. Did you know the tech stack that's behind Zillow, Redfin, and Realtor.com that they use for property listings? So you would think that it would be the multiple listing service or the MLS, which most of us would be familiar with. And you would think it would be a simple single source of listing information, but it's not. And there's a lot of technology behind it as well. Now, when we return, I'm going to address that in more detail. Our guests today include Mr. Jeremiah Fox. He is host of the Entrepreneurial Web Radio podcast. Also have Dr. Lance Knaub, author of the 4% Breakthrough book, which is a running theme here on AutoConversion. We also have Ron Sandell, sales and performance coach, also a budding content creator. All three of these names you may have heard before if you've been here. So you'll get to see them again. And if it's the first time, then that's great too. So sit back, relax, and we're going to get started in just a moment. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. But before we do, I just want to take one quick moment to give a shout out to one of our sponsors, SmartPiXL by M1 Data and Analytics, how to turn your website's anonymous visitors into engaged customers. SmartPiXL does that. It turns anonymous website visitors into fully identified first-party consumer data. And when this match and identification takes place, SmartPiXL can return up to 300 different attributes on the consumer. So things like name and postal address, email address, gender, maybe even date of birth. You'll also get more specific details like home ownership, vehicle ownership, political party affiliation, children in the household, you name it. Again, over 300 attributes on the consumer. So SmartPiXL provides real-time information about your website visitors. It's easy to install, and it's fully GDPR and CCPA compliant. Find out more by going to autoconversion.net/SmartPiXL. That's SmartPiXL. Now, what I'm going to do is go right here. This is a blog spread that we put together. Unfortunately, one of our guests is not able to make it today. He's stuck on a flight. And boy, do I keep hearing disasters with the airlines industry. I think our airline industry could be in, a heap of trouble. So Carlos won't be with us today, but we're fine. We're going to ad lib and make this work. But what you're looking at is the blog spread about today's show. And, what I did was I kind of laid out what I was just sharing with you about the tech stack behind Zillow, Redfin, and Realtor.com. So where I was going with that is there's not a single multiple listing services in the real estate business. There's hundreds all over the US. And so it's extremely burdensome to negotiate an agreement with everybody, and especially once you become nationwide. MLSs were really intended to be localized, not nationalized. And that's why the largest aggregator websites such as Zillow and Redfin and Realtor.com, they have to enter these data sharing agreements with big national real estate companies to get their data directly. Now, this is a fascinating niche. It's a little bit out of the scope of B2B, but these companies, this is not the only types of data that they need. They also need data about neighborhoods and schools, points of interest, demographics, sales history, all sorts of home buying and selling information. So they have to bring in tons and tons of data. That data is analogous to what I would refer to as content for your content marketing strategy. And in order to process this data, scrub it, pass it around, aggregate it, put meaning, and use that data, can you imagine the tech stack that's behind this? There's a lot of really powerful technology that makes all of this work. So essentially, data is like the blood in the veins for these companies. And the technology, I would say, is like the body that houses it all. So much like, this data and technology and the tech stack behind that, B2B brands and marketers and business owners, we require something similar, content. And there's also technology to make all this work. So content, I like to say, is like the fuel, right? It's the logs in the fire. It's the gasoline that makes the engine run, and it must constantly be created to feed your target audience. And then you need technology to make all that happen. You need technology to create the content, and you need technology to get the content out there. So this is what I refer to as your media and your public relations strategy. And if you scroll down in that post that I'm showing you here, there's a link to our B2B demand generation guide, which is still being updated. It's a couple years old, but still relevant because we provide a blueprint for this type of content marketing. Creating original content obviously is time consuming. It's time consuming and can be expensive as well. And to create great content that educates and enlightens and entertains is a stretch for the average marketer. It's hard for the above average marketer. And you're going to meet a couple of, like I mentioned, a few of these folks that are in the content creation business. It takes creativity. It takes imagination. I would say it takes time and patience. And technology is real. You need to get a grip with technology. Another component to creating great content consistently over long periods of time is having a process. If you don't have a process and you're just kind of winging it and no strategy behind that, you're really just throwing stuff at the wall. And many marketers and business owners today, they are creating original content, but for every one person you see that are succeeding in this area, there are many, many more who are not, who are struggling, or the flames have fanned out and they've, maybe been doing it for a few months. I struggle with this too. I cannot get enough of the type of content that I want to get out as often as I really, truly would like to. But I do have a process that makes it possible to produce a significant amount of high quality, omni-channel, multimedia content. One of the challenges you're going to hear us talk about is the challenge of yielding a sufficient return on investment. So with that, what I'm going to do is bring up Mr. Jeremiah Fox, and we're actually going to, originally Carlos was going to lead this segment with us, but he couldn't make it today last minute, unfortunately. So I'm going to bring Jeremiah on. We're actually going to go right into our mindset tips first. And then what we'll do is we'll bring Lance and Ron on, start our panel discussion, and we'll get more specific into the tech stack behind our content strategy. So give me 1 second here to bring Jeremiah on, and we're going to be focusing on how to be a better warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war. All right, Jeremiah, should be you and me. Do we got audio?
We got audio.
Dang, man. I just watched the Adam Project with Ryan Reynolds. Have you seen that? He's
No,
pretty buff, man. I'm like,
yeah. I've seen pictures.
You're looking good.
Thanks. I've been hitting it
Mr.
hard lately.
Martial arts guy.
Yeah. It's great too that the way you were talking about the data being the blood and the technology being the body, and how important it is to take care of that. And we ourselves as marketers, entrepreneurs, public relations personnel, we have to do the same for ourselves. And we've talked about it before on the show, the idea of health equaling wealth. We're all here trying to build our bounty, and it takes a lot of things. There's a lot of things that go into it, and you and I both have agreed and gotten a lot of great positive feedback on that idea of taking care of the self. Lance as well. I mean, he built a career out of it that gave him the platform to do what he's doing now. And he would agree it's a really important thing. And there are many ways to express that. Some people just like to go for a jog. Maybe they jog like 5 mornings a week, and that's outstanding. Some people swim. Some people go to the gym and lift weights. Some people, take Pilates or all, various forms of classes. And I've done many of those things as well over the years. These beautiful biceps did not come, by singular.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm feeling a little vain today. I don't know what it is, man. I actually just did a really hard session like right before this. I'm personal trainer as well. So I did an outdoor session, and it's finally warm enough here in New York City that you can absorb some sunshine and
feel some humidity. I noticed yesterday the humidity was kicking in. I'm like, spring is really here, man.
Yeah. Just walking my daughter to school this morning, I broke out in a sweat. It was like 8 o'clock. I was like, all right, we're getting there, which is funny because 3 days ago it was freezing. But, at 7 years ago, I started a martial arts journey in Jiujitsu. And for me, that was a life-changing experience. I was quite fit and healthy going into that. I didn't necessarily do it for fitness, but I knew that it would be another way to express myself physically and help sharpen the sword. And a constant theme that you'll hear, a martial arts value that comes up all the time, is that it's better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war. And it all comes down to preparation. We've all heard the saying, failing to prepare is preparing to fail. So what one realizes once they get into a martial arts journey, you have a martial arts background yourself, is that it becomes multifold benefit. It's not just this one thing where like, oh, I'm going for a jog and I'm getting fitness out of it. What joggers often say is that they have this mindful moment, where they're jogging, they get to like let everything go. Maybe they've got, their favorite soundtrack on, and they just get to kind of get in this meditative state, which is fantastic as well. And you'll find that in martial arts as well. But this idea of really preparing for difficulty, like always kind of being prepared for difficulty, is an added benefit of doing something like a martial art, and particularly jiu-jitsu. I'll explain more why I'm a huge advocate for jiu-jitsu in a moment. But I think the last couple of years have really shown people that easy times are not guaranteed. I know we were coming off of like a really, what I would consider like nationally a pretty easy run. It was easy to put up a shingle and set up shop and get things going and experience some success. And the last couple of years really rocked that. And just prior to that, most of us can remember what things were like in 2007 and 2008. And some of us even can remember what it was like in 99, and around that time, if you've been in business long enough. And I think it's really important to remind, especially the up and coming generations of entrepreneurs and marketers, that adversity is going to be there, and it's going to. We've learned that it's going to show up in a bunch of different ways, and the more you can prepare yourself mentally for that adversity, the better you situate yourself for capitalizing on successful moments when they arise. As I understand it, the term luck or fortune is the intersection of opportunity and preparation. And the opportunities we kind of don't have any control over. We can try to muster up some ourselves, but a lot of times it's just what's happening in the universe. But we do have control over our own preparation to be able to take advantage of those opportunities when they arise, and accept that fortune for ourselves and take ownership of it. And martial arts are a great way to, outside of your job, do that mental prep work. And the reason I think jiu-jitsu is one of the best outlets for that is because it is one of the only martial arts where you can completely immerse yourself into a full-on fight, if you will, like a full-on grappling match. And there can be a completion to that match. There can be a declared winner and a declared, loser through submission. And everybody gets to stand up and shake hands and walk off, in still intact, in one piece. But you literally just went to war. You went to battle, but you're fine afterwards. Now, you couldn't do that, say, with boxing or Muay Thai or Taekwondo. If you eat like a solid round kick to the head, you're not going to walk off the mat the same way you came on.
Sure.
So jiu-jitsu really allows you to get deep into that mindset where you experience tremendous adversity and you have to learn how to overcome it. You have to really learn how to be a fighter. And most of us don't know what that feels like if we weren't in the military or if we weren't in some sort of, security like forces. Yeah, but even like the most elite, I think, do that, in sports. But I was talking to my brother about it recently. And, he's been in sports for a long time, and he's trained. He was a baseball player, and he came up with like Ryan Zimmerman and the guy from the Mets. I always forget his name, David Wright. Like he played, kid ball with those guys. They're like the same age. And at a certain point, those guys just took off. And he was saying to me just the other day, like the biggest gap is between the elite pros and the ones just below them. And then everybody else is kind of in like this big pool of like, yeah, you're talented, but it's just up at the very top, I think, in terms of like, baseball, basketball, so on and so forth, where those guys have that kind of mentality, which represents a very small percentage of even, professional players. So how does the average person that just wants to like be successful at what they're doing absorb some of that mentality? And I think jiu-jitsu is just a really great way to do it, because you can fully immerse yourself. You can really test yourself to the limits. And the most amazing thing about it, especially when, someone gets on your back and they're putting a sleeper hold on you and you're like, okay, this is going down, that, your vision starts to go, you get a little tunnel vision. It's like, I'm about to go to sleep, and you tap and you're like, you're fine. It's just literally cutting blood off to your brain, not oxygen, and there's no harm done. But it's representative. I remember the first times it was happening to me, it was like this panic that set in, because it's like I would die. It's metaphorical death, Yeah. But then you have to face that, and you have to say to yourself, okay, how do we fix this? How do we make ourselves okay with that catastrophic failure? And I talk to business owners all the time about how they're addressing that. You have to really face these, and COVID really put that front and center for people. And you saw how many people gave up so quickly because they just were not prepared. Even if, things hadn't closed them down yet, they closed themselves down. And it's because I think a lot of it was they just hadn't mentally prepared themselves for like these kind of challenges and what it looks like. And like, how do you, it doesn't have to be devastating. It doesn't have to be a sum zero game. You can be a part of the rising tide still within that. And it just comes down to understanding yourself, your threshold, and how do you negotiate these challenges, instead of just saying, I'm a potter, and I make pots and I do it when times are good, and then when times are bad, I don't. Like, if you don't have a commitment, you're never going to be one of Lance's 4%ers if you don't have that commitment.
Now, I would even add to that, as you rise up in your defined success and you get into bigger, more competitive leagues per se, the stakes get even harder and harder. The fall gets farther, and climbing gets harder. Literally, if you think of climbing like Mount Everest, it just gets harder as you get up there.
And we all know from our own successes that it doesn't get any easier. One thing I realized about training and, getting a black belt in jiu-jitsu, which is the goal, is to get to black belt, is a very big challenge. It doesn't come quick. I know in other martial arts, they pass out belts pretty quickly, but in jiu-jitsu, it's like getting a PhD. You're talking about an 8 to 12-year commitment. That's an average for a grown male to get to a black belt. And it doesn't get easier. It's not like you get to black belt and you're like, haha, I can beat everybody. You're still getting beat by a bunch of black belts. It's never any easier. You just showed that you could stick with it long enough.
Yeah.
To you could deal with that adversity every day. And I just, I really want to reiterate that it's just not going away. The challenges are just going to get harder and harder. And if you're in Brooklyn, it's really like a war because there's, subway shooters and stuff like that. So you really gotta, I'm not kidding, man. It was like 15 blocks from where I'm at right now. It was like really close. It was in our backyard. So heightened awareness, I love that every time I leave a class, I have this super heightened awareness and I'm ready to deal with, pretty much whatever's coming my way. And some of the other things that it brings out in you that we all need is coachability. Like if you can stick with it long enough to get your black belt, it shows that you can be coached. Another, thing that I know Lance would back me up on this, we all need it. The most successful people on the planet have coaches. And it's probably why they're so successful, because we need reminders. We need to be reminded what our values are, how to get there, what our strategies are, what our tactics are to get to those strategies. We need those constant reminders. We're not in a bubble all unto ourselves. And in martial arts, you make those connections. You find your community. You realize, man, it really does take a village. It takes a team, and that will inform your business decisions. And then lastly, to tie into today's show is dynamic problem solving. You were talking about the tech stacks and all these different things happening. And it's changing constantly, right? Tech is changing so quickly. And if you're not training your brain to keep up with those changes, you're just going to get left behind. You're going to get the water's just going to wash right over you. And in jiu-jitsu, it's that same way. What the problem you had 15 seconds ago is no longer a problem anymore. Now you've got another one, and it might be a bigger problem. And you have to adjust. You have to abandon. You have to have the attention span to say, okay, that is no longer my issue. I need to quickly adjust and deal with this and deal with that. And it's constantly happening. And it just sharpens the brain. So when you come out, not only are you more fit, you're physically in a better place than you were when you came out, when you started. Your mind is also clearer. You've just interacted with all these people. It's networking. You're practicing networking, and all these things that contribute to our success as entrepreneurs and marketers and business owners. And I just simply cannot advocate for it enough. And how my life, I can't imagine what my life would be like right now if I had to start
without it.
Yeah. Just that's scary to me. That's just literally scary.
How often, and folks, we're going to transition in a moment. I'm going to bring Ron and Lance up, and we're going to start talking about content marketing and tech stacks, but just keeping the focus on you for a moment. How often as an entrepreneur, you run a restaurant, you're in a wine group, now you're building kind of a martial arts training center mixed with business consulting. How often do you find yourself in that metaphorical place of, oh shit, the bloodline stopping, I'm going to die? Is it every few weeks, every few months, or a couple times a year? How often do you feel that way?
Multiple times a day.
Really?
Yeah.
That's intense.
With like you mentioned, I've been a number of businesses, and they're small, scrappy businesses in New York City, one of the most cutthroat markets on the planet. Yeah. And yeah, it's daily, multiple times a day. I mean, I've already had one really, really tough conversation this morning that had to do with the major finances of two places. And I had no idea what the outcome was going to be of that conversation, but I knew, from my training, I knew I might have to say some things that would not be comfortable for everyone, but they had to be said. I really had to have the fighter mentality of this may not be pretty at the end, but it has to be done. And that's how fighters feel. You know, when you take like pro fighters, and I train with a lot of pro and top amateur fighters right now, and these guys willingly go into a cage or a ring knowing like you are going to get punched in the face a bunch. That doesn't mean you, yeah, it's just nuts. And they punch me regularly. I get punched in the face regularly. Like I go to these classes and I know I'm going to get punched. And it's kind of like awful. Sometimes I'm on the train, like holding my bag, like a little scared school kid. Like I got to go fight the bully, you know, but like my dad told me I had to step up to him. So here we go. But I've just done that so much now that it's on autopilot, so that when I have these interactions that are things that could be a potential threat to my business, I'm just ready. I'm ready to have those hard conversations and say what needs to be said, without a bunch of like sugarcoating and making things difficult, you know, and just
sugarcoating just prolongs the
pain. It really does. Like you have to stand up for yourself. You have to be your own best advocate. I mean, you are your number one wealth generator, you know, nobody else is going to do it for you. No job or anything. Is you at the end of the day. So you have to protect yourself both, you know, in terms of like fitness, so that you can reap the benefits. You know, you want to live long, you want to live healthy. You want to, if you make all that money, you want to be able to use it in certain ways. But you really have to be able to stand up for yourself and protect what you worked so hard for. And that's, you know, that's another thing that you get from that. It's just like, you're ready pretty much at all times.
One thing I'd like to highlight that you brought up was the idea of luck. And, you know, I've learned recently how important or how significant luck is, but you can't have good luck if you're not prepared. If you don't show up and you're not prepared, then that luck strikes and you miss it.
And it comes down to confidence a lot of times. And that's another thing that training martial arts is going to give you, because if that opportunity comes up and say you have all the other necessary components in line, but you personally don't pull the trigger, you're like, oh my God, is this going to work? Should I do it? You know, the imposter syndrome, to bring back another theme from the show, comes in. If you're not ready to deal with it, you're going to miss your opportunity. Even though you've done all the back work, it could just simply come down to confidence. And when you've trained enough and you're in that mentality constantly, you're just ready to pull the trigger for the good and for the bad at just about any time. And that's going to be a huge contributor to your success and like where your ceiling ends up. Don't build that low ceiling for yourself. You know, make it as high as the sky.
Yeah, make it so you can't reach it. It's actually better. It's better to fail on a high goal than to succeed on a low goal, for sure.
Die by your own sword. I mean, the great thing about jiu-jitsu is it's coming out of like the old samurai tradition, you know, and the stories go like in Japan, you know, wartime Japan, they trained hard because they were fighting hard. It was bloody, it was messy, you know, and guys would die just training. And then they kept training that way during like peacetime. Like, can we change this a little bit so like guys aren't dying, because we're not at war anymore? And that's kind of where jiu-jitsu came from. It kind of spawned out of that, you know, like that post-samurai era. And they were big on that. It's better to die by your own sword than somebody else's.
Absolutely. Well, awesome, man. I love what you bring to the table. You know,
Thank you.
A few months ago, you brought the idea of leverage. I was just listening to Seth Godin's podcast today. He was talking about leverage. You know, you got to find ways. And now we're talking about preparation and you know, just be willing to die by your own sword. So great stuff. And what we're going to do is we're going to bring Ron and Lance on. We're going to pick up right here with Lance's comment that you will never be a 4%er. Just real quick, folks, before I switch over, I wanted to let you know what Jeremiah is doing here is what we call our mindset segment. I'm going to bring back on screen here. If you go to AutoConversion.net, oops, I didn't press the right button. Let's see, go here and look under programming. What you'll see is our calendar. These are all the media opportunities and public speaking opportunities that we have available through our network here on AutoConversion. So if you have a message and you want to be heard and you know, you have an opportunity here throughout the month many times to get up here. Both Jeremiah, Lance, and Ron, who you're going to all meet today, have all been up here multiple times. This is the mindset segment, and I try to fit this in with a fresh message every month. So just sign up here. Go to this link on the site. sign up, and that'll let me know that you're interested in being on the show. And then we can start the process of discussion on what your message is and how to get you involved. So thank you again, Jeremiah. Let's get hold on, Lance and Ron up here. I'll stop sharing my screen. Look at them shades, Ron. Playing it cool. Where are you headed, Ron? You in the car, I see.
Yes, I am. And no, I did not get my eyes dilated at the doctor today. But with these two other guys on the screen here, the future is so bright, I had to put some shades on.
Woo!
So I am ready. Jeremiah was a rock star, and I'm sure Lance will have some fantastic stuff to add. So I'm ready to roll.
Well, cool, Ron. Why don't you kick things off? What's your response? What's your reaction to the conversation with me and Jeremiah?
Well, I mean, I've been following Jeremiah for about a year or so now through Lance's network and through you and so forth. And I'm just constantly amazed at his ability to do two of the things that I value so much in the sales world, and that would be focus and time management, because he's got his hands in a bunch of different things, and you know, through the pandemic and all the changes that have gone on there, especially with the restaurant business and maybe the wine thing that he's involved with, I'm sure that they were dramatically impacted, and hopefully, you know, I always believe that change is good. So making some changes to the way that things have, quote, always been done is sort of an awakening that I think 4%ers, like Lance would say, it's an awakening for them to try to do things different and find a different and better way. So I'm continually impressed with that, not to mention, you know, the jiu-jitsu stuff. I tried that once with a friend who invited me to a training class, and I didn't go back to the second class.
You got punched in the face and said, not for me.
I just think I'm not really good at rolling around on the ground. It's a really hard sport, like super hard. Like, what is it? Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is basically ground fighting, right?
Yeah.
So it's different, very different. Amazing. So I love hearing stories from like people that take on those kind of challenges. So fantastic.
Awesome. So Lance, we've brought up 4%.
It looks like I might have froze up a little bit mobile, so sorry about that.
No, you're fine. You're fine. Lance, why don't you explain to the audience what we're referring to by 4%, and the theme of your book so that everybody can know.
For sure. Hey, great to see everybody. Ryan, thanks for having me. Sorry, Carlos couldn't join us. You guys have me a little bit nervous because I'm taking a flight to Europe on Friday with my family for our version of a European vacation to Portugal and Spain. So hopefully everything cooperates. Yeah, 4%, right? Probably most of the audience knows Michael Gerber and the book, The E-Myth Revisited. And, you know, Michael Gerber, you know, clearly explains that 80% of small business owners fail in the first 5 years. And by the way, even if you're in that 20%, don't get too excited because 80% of that group fail in the next 5 years. So if you actually calculate the math, unfortunately, 96% of small business owners fail within 10 years. So obviously that is an atrocious, terrible statistic. And, you know, my book is called The 4% Breakthrough, to try to help entrepreneurs reverse that stat and to stay healthy personally, which Jeremiah and Ryan did an amazing job of touching on, you know, all those different health and, you know, wellness components that are necessary to stay, you know, healthy while you're scaling and trying to create a healthy business that you can actually get paid along the way, right? That's a novelty. I mean, so many entrepreneurs pay themselves last and don't get paid for the roles they're in, and certainly don't have double-digit profitability. And maybe most unfortunately don't build an asset that actually is sellable if they want to sell it. So that's the 4% breakthrough. Passion of mine, just helping entrepreneurs succeed and stay healthy along the way.
And let me just bring your book up here on screen. Actually, for your website. Hang on one sec. I should have had that up. There you go. So if you go to the Denali Consulting Team DenaliConsultingTeam.com. You'll see the link for book. It's also in the link in the show notes as well. And you can watch a little video about Lance's book and make a purchase as well. So that's what we're referring to by 4%, is that 96% of small business owners fail within 10 years. And if you listen to my conversation with Jeremiah, you can see why. It's because it is so difficult as you climb and go forward. It is so difficult. I personally can say, when I first went into business for the very first time for myself, back in 2007, and I had a lot of money in the bank, and I didn't know what I was getting into, but I knew I didn't know what I was getting into. Fortunately, I had already read The E-Myth by Michael Gerber. After 1 year, I succeeded in a sense. Like, I was billing out tens of thousands of dollars a month, and I was like, I did it, I'm great. And then a year later, I was pretty much flat broke. Like, it just crashed. The recession came. This was 2008, and businesses left, and it was like, boom. And it took me years to rebuild from that. So what we're talking about is very, very real. Let's segue, gentlemen, into the theme of the show. We've got about 20 minutes here, which will go very fast, which is a content marketing strategy. And as I've put out there, and all of you guys know this, having, a good, consistent, effective content marketing strategy that yields a return on investment for your business is extremely difficult. And for everyone you see doing it, there's many more not doing it or trying. And I'll be transparent here. Jeremiah has multiple businesses, and he's now pivoting. He started his podcast business, the Entrepreneurial Web Radio Podcast. Now it's evolving into its like second season, or phase, if you will. Not season literally, but phase of what it means for him as an entrepreneur and how. And he just recently switched his tech stack. Ron is kind of almost at ground zero. Started a Substack just about 6 months ago, made a commitment to do a monthly video blog, and 4 months in, boom, we hit some obstacles, right, Ron? Like, it's real. You can feel that. Lance does a lot of Clubhouse activity. That's content. He's producing content through Clubhouse. It's networking. It's driving his business. But what are some other areas that I hound you about, like your blog, right? And getting consistent blog content. So we're all in different places with our content strategy. Let's get back to Jeremiah. For you, I want to focus on tech stack. You recently went from NYC Talk Radio, which I would say is a managed podcast service, if you will, where you're just showing up, focusing on the content. And now you're using a different tech stack. I don't know where you are exactly. What are you using now, the transition, and maybe speak to that a little bit on how that transition's been. So let us know what that tech is.
Yeah, so I'm using Restream now. Instead of going through talkradio.nyc, they were, like, as you correctly pointed out, they were managing the tech services for me. And it was a live stream, live audio to their website, live video to the station's Facebook page. But that was it. Now I was getting good data on the amount of unique listeners I would get, and like where in the world they were at, and downloads, but no interaction at all. There's no way to speak to those people, open up a conversation with them, which I found kind of limiting. So what I traded for that was using Restream and my social media platforms, which I've been building out diligently over the last 3 years. And now Restream allows me to live stream the video content to my Facebook page, my LinkedIn profile, my Twitter account, my YouTube channel, which has housed all of my video podcasts so far, and to Twitch, which I'm just getting onto. I'm less so for community, more so for its editorial qualities, the way I can just like extract micro content out of the show. So what that afforded me was complete interaction. And I've got, the last 2 shows that I did, I had probably like 20 or 30 real-time questions and comments from viewers in the moment, which we were getting 0 before. And then I can go back and connect with those people later on if I already don't have an existing relationship. I mean, the last show I did 2 weeks ago, guy from the Philippines on LinkedIn was like, "Hi, from the Philippines, just checking in. I love martial arts and business. I love what you're doing." I've connected with that guy, and I can have a conversation with him now and get real data and feedback on what people are looking for that have actually tuned into the show that is going to get them to come back. We're all looking for that repeat interaction and that repeat business. So for me, it was a good trade.
Are you personally managing the levers and the controls of Restream, or do you have a producer doing that?
No, at the moment I'm doing it myself. And I mean, at this point, I consider myself a podcast veteran. I've done it in a bunch of different ways. I've done it in a studio where someone was handling everything. We did it on Zoom where I participated some. I've managed some on my own completely. So at this point, I feel comfortable doing that all myself. And I would like to get, you're a huge influence on me. I love the way you pull up websites and everything. I haven't quite gotten to that point yet, but I want to start really making it interactive. One of the most exciting shows I have lined up is that I'm going to mint an NFT with a guy that's been on the show previously. He's also a martial artist. He's a world-renowned muralist, and he started this NFT community. And so we're actually going to mint one of his NFTs live, so people that are completely novice to like how to do that. People are becoming aware of what an NFT is, but then what are the next steps and how do you put that all together? So we're going to do a minting for dummies live video. And for that, it's going to have to be very interactive, and I'm going to be pulling up sites and everything. So I have to cut my teeth on that. There's going to be some adversity. There's going to be some dynamic problem solving there. I can guarantee it. It's going to be like a workout, but
when are you doing this, Jeremiah?
We don't have a date set yet. I thought we were going to do it this month. We may still, but we haven't set the date yet. But there will be a tremendous amount of promo going out for that one.
Interesting. Next week, I'm doing a clubhouse, calling it a micro class, and I'm minting an NFT on Doge Party.
Nice. That's awesome.
Yeah. So I'll get you the info so you can tune into
awesome.
that.
That's amazing. Yeah.
I'd like to tune into yours.
Cool.
So let me recount this. You're using Restream, and you're streaming to Facebook, YouTube. Are you streaming to LinkedIn?
LinkedIn, Twitter.
And soon Twitch. Twitter.
And Twitch also, yeah. I'm doing all 5 already.
Okay.
And the benefit to that is that it's now on my personal profiles as opposed to the stations. Right. Which was, they had thousands and thousands of followers and connections and all that, but just 0 interaction. So, for me, it was kind of like, what's the point? It was a great springboard for me. It helped me, get my show out there and connect to a lot of people. But, I definitely wanted more interaction and more feedback and to connect with people.
And that's an example. It's not as a life-threatening, dire example of, this worked for what it needed to, but it kind of, it kind of dimmed out for you. Like you have to switch and transition. You have to constantly change. So great. So Restream, 5 different destinations that you stream to. You've got a studio you've got to do it from. You've got hardware, equipment, audio, lighting, video. There's so much technology behind that. Ron, let's go to the opposite end of the spectrum, right? You've launched a Substack, which quite frankly is progressive. Like that's like the latest, greatest thing. That's the, what is that called? The new shiny object. But, speak to in your mind, speak to what technology is for you. What is Substack for you? And what are some of the challenges you see with the technology and the process behind that? Yeah,
wow, I didn't know I was so progressive. Thank you. That made my day. I'm gonna have to tell my wife I was progressive today. So that's awesome. So I like to write a little bit. I'm okay at writing, but I'm not really good at executing it. So it's few and far between. So the Substack, which is like a newsletter or a blog, we're putting this out monthly. It's a sales related topic for the most part. And it's been really enlightening to think of topics, to sort of engage with the community, whoever's interested. I basically post these on LinkedIn. We get some followers. We get some folks that signed up to be part of the newsletter. And I think the really cool thing is we're going to be taking this to the next level and starting to build this out into a monthly roundtable concept with memberships, monthly or annually, so that they can have access to these once a month roundtables where we'll do some things just like this to talk about different topics and sort of go around the horn and discuss related experiences in that regard and share best practices, share learnings, all of that good stuff, because that's how people learn, and especially in sales. And there's always a better salesperson than yourself. And if you can pick up a few pearls here and there, I call it stealing shamelessly. Why not, right? So, none of this stuff is really that much of a copyright type thing. So anyway, that's what I'm doing now. And it's been a total learning experience, and there's been some stops and starts and things like that, but it's going pretty well so far. And these all get posted on LinkedIn, basically.
Yeah. So your tech stack is Substack and LinkedIn pretty much. One great thing about Substack is it emails your subscribers. So for instance, I use WordPress blogs, and then I use MailChimp to get the blogs out there, and it's automated, but it gets the blogs out there. Substack, it's all built into one. What's your experience so far with Substack? Has it been easy for you to adapt to, or does it present challenges for you?
Well, I have somebody that helps me do that, who's an expert at it. So it's been pretty easy for me.
Easier. We should be transparent, just so people know. Ron and I have a coaching arrangement, and Ron, basically is following along the process. I mentioned I have a process, and you can see it, Ron. Like, just having a process doesn't yield success, right? Just having the technology doesn't equal success. You actually have to go through the pain of the process to get an output.
Yeah. Otherwise, football players would just show up to practice. They wouldn't look at the playbook, right? They'd be like, oh yeah, you need me to run a deep route? Okay, great. Well, it might be slightly different based on that offensive coordinator's experience, strategy, etc. Execution is key. And so far I'm lacking in that area, but we're just building this. And then I use the Trello boards, which is a great way to organize all the different things I do in my life, personally and professionally. So it's really kind of cool. And you've helped me with that too. So that's been like a godsend. So it's been awesome.
Yeah, Trello is very diverse and robust. Diverse just meaning there are lots of different ways to skin the cat is the analogy I like to use. Robust in the sense that you can really build around it and customize around it. Folks, I'm
breaking away from sticky notes.
Yeah. But see, even that, like every conversation I have is noted. And then I have a process to digitize the important information into that. But look, you have Jeremiah using Restream and different streaming destinations. And there's probably more tech behind it to promote it, like email distribution. Ron's got Substack. Lance, let's spend a couple of minutes here with you. I mentioned that Clubhouse seems to be your main driver for outreach, which is content. Some of it's recorded, some of it's not. Maybe speak to that and enlighten us on other technology that you're harnessing as well around Denali Consulting.
Yeah, well, I think you're the person that actually gets credit for bringing me into Clubhouse with you and Rob Holman's group, but you're my, initiator who gave me approval to come in. It was like invite only with Clubhouse. And Jeremiah and I spent many, many hours in many, many rooms. And I'm having a blast persevering with Clubhouse. A lot of the initial, enthusiasm, waned a little bit However, a lot of the people that I bring on in our hot seat room, so we bring entrepreneurs in and we, spotlight them, feature them, and really spend a big chunk of time helping them with their biggest problems. So, Clubhouse is something I'm utilizing very regularly. Similar to you today, I use StreamYard as well. I try to do 1 to 2 live streams a month. Have to get you guys on those as well. And then, I'm pretty basic, right? And I'm basically a solopreneur, but I do have access to you and your help. And I did have, marketing help via an independent contractor, and they've become less available in the world, right? Just like Jeremiah and you said earlier, you have to be ready for anything. And the fight analogy, ready for the next gut blow. So all of a sudden now I'm trying to figure out all the marketing that, someone was helping me with again, and figure out what I want to continue with. And, really the exciting thing for me and for Denali is that now 5 years into things, I'm really, becoming more referral based. So all of the technology and the social media is nice, and I don't want to go to zero, but I have, my growing network and current clients are, pleased with, the help that I'm providing, and providing more and more referrals, which is better and better. So the technology, which I need to rely on experts like you, Ryan, to help me with, is becoming less and less, critical. I definitely need to maintain a presence, but I think that, fortunately, I heard Chris Kelso say it 2 months ago, and, even in the last 2 months, my numbers have really spiked, which is beautiful. So I'm very pleased with that.
That's great to hear. And, I wanted to respond to something
Please.
that you mentioned. You had an independent contractor helping with marketing, and now that resource is gone. And this speaks directly to what I preach about process. Is if you, as the entrepreneur, as the face of your strategy, if you don't have a process, then you are beholden to somebody else's process.
Absolutely true.
And as Jeremiah alluded to, shit changes all the time. And so that's why I put a lot of emphasis on process, right? And so that I can bring people in interchangeably and train them on the process, right? And that's why process is really, truly, truly key, I think. You're using Clubhouse, right? What other technology are you utilizing? I'm pretty sure you use MailChimp, and I know you use Wix for your website, right?
Correct. Yes.
What's your thoughts on having 2 different technologies, Wix and MailChimp, that can't Wix do a lot of things that MailChimp can do? Have you kind of done your SWOT analysis, if you will, between the 2?
Yeah. Well, thanks for asking, because it's always a work in progress, and I'm definitely measuring. And, I am very profit first focused. So, I consulted with Gary Steele, one of the brightest SEO type digital marketing type guys. And for me in 2018, recommended just starting with a simple website on Wix. And I've been happy with that decision. And now that I am trying to roll up my sleeves and figure out my next marketing move, I've consulted with a couple agencies, and, the one that I spoke with did recommend that I go to WordPress. So I'm trying to figure it all out. But Wix has served my needs. MailChimp, I'm using the free version. So, now that I have more and more, clients and, more and more revenue, I can stay profitable so that I can serve more people and add some of these, extra layers, right? And just be careful not to have too much tech too fast, right? Because we see that as a mistake. I know it is easy. There's so much tech, right? Ryan, that it's easy to say yes to all of that. So I try to say no first and figure it out and sort of do the workarounds and everything else. But obviously you really have to study it, because, you do have to move forward at the right time for sure. You can't stay too lean and too small too long.
Yeah. And you can't take transitioning your tech stack lightly. It's there's a transition period that can take weeks to months, and that can bog you down. And then you're locked in, committed to it. So you're going to find things that you didn't anticipate. right? Jeremiah, I'd love to hear. Can you identify one or two things that have come up as new problems, new challenges that you just didn't foresee, specifically related to your transition?
Yeah. So as you pointed out, there's hardware involved, lighting, cameras, microphones, all these things. And in our first few runs, there were issues with all of it. One, there was no audio. Another time, the headphones just stopped working halfway through. There were video issues with going with an outsourced camera. I wasn't using the native camera on the laptop. So there were a bunch of tech issues along the way that just kind of seemed to resolve themselves. I don't know what happened each time. And I was doing a bunch of trial runs to see, if I could pinpoint it. And the cool part about, this live stream application that I have now is that I'm not just using it for the show. I would use it as a test run and an opportunity to engage with people on those platforms that have backgrounds in technology. So I would just go live for like 3 to 5 minutes, explain what the situation was and ask for help. And I got some really great responses. And then again, just further like awareness of the show. I'm like, so I have this show if you didn't know, or if you knew, but you never checked it out, but these are the issues that I'm having. And when you ask for help, for people, like on LinkedIn, these video guys, they're totally happy to help. And then next thing you know, they're checking out your show. And you're just like, I didn't anticipate that, but that was a good byproduct of it. But having the studio manage everything for me before, and they had their hardware kind of on lockdown. What I didn't like was, we were using Zoom, and the video quality on that is just terrible. So I wanted to get better video quality. And we got that, but there were just some kinks along the way, better video and audio actually. And like I said, it all just kind of panned itself out, but it definitely happened with like some high profile, guests on, and a little bead of sweat coming down my head. And, just like entrepreneurship, there's nobody behind me to catch me as I fell. I just had to take that landing. We're going in hard, guys.
Yeah.
And as they say, the show must go on.
I use StreamYard, as you guys know here, and what I'm finding, I haven't figured out the problem yet, but when I use my external HD camera, everything looks fine in StreamYard on my preview, but then when I go and look at the recording, my video is pixelated, only in the recording. And it's like, these are the types of, dilemmas that you're like, what do? You don't switch your tech stack. You have to actually figure out the problem.
Right.
I will leave us with this. I try to always remind myself that the purpose of business is to solve some sort of problem, some sort of life problem. That's what business should do. And the purpose of technology should solve typically some sort of business problem. That's why we need technology, because we're trying to solve a problem, and the technology should solve that problem. If you ever find yourself dabbling with technology, but you haven't identified the problem you're trying to solve. So for instance, I went from Zoom. I started using Zoom before the pandemic, before it was like this de facto, networking piece. I started using Zoom because I wanted to live stream and go to webinar and join me. None of them live stream. The only way I could live stream other than logging into Facebook or YouTube was through my iPhone. And then you could do it directly. But the problem that presented was I was limited to my iPhone, and I couldn't really do this. So I started using Zoom because it live streamed. That was the problem it solved. Well, then I got to a point where I wanted to do transitions and, things like banners, like you see here, like we could put up, little things like this. You can't do that on Zoom. And so I had to research, and StreamYard could solve those problems. And that allowed me to switch, but it's very difficult to switch over, because you're a train on the track rolling, and it's like, do you change a wheel while the car's driving? No, you got to pull over and stop. So, and I don't think digital media, you don't get that luxury. It's harder like that. No. Guys, good stuff. Obviously, we could spend a whole nother hour talking about this, and it's brought up many different themes. So, kudos to all of you for what you're doing. I love the community we have, folks. All of us do a lot of backdoor interactions and a lot of live streaming, so our live events. So you got a good group of guys here. But thank you, and Jeremiah, great mindset tips today as usual. Awesome.
Thanks,
My
Ryan.
pleasure.
Great to see you, Jeremiah and Ron. Okay.
See you guys. Take care.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
All right. So what I'm going to do is just wrap up our program. Let me share this screen here again. If you go to AutoConversion.net, look under the programming tab. I got to do some updates. Again, there's our schedule. These are all the media and public speaking opportunities that we have available. Lance hosts a clubhouse room every Thursday. Great way to come in and get input and peer review on business ideas and strategies and problems. We also, Lance and I, do a clubhouse room twice monthly called Say No to Murphy. And that's where we can get more granular into your specific vision and strategy. We limit that to 4 people, although unlimited people can tune in. Here on B2B Hour, as you saw, definitely different opportunities to present and to elaborate on specific things and let the world know what you're doing. I will also add every other Wednesday I do the Audio Video Pros Roundtable. It is for premium members, but it's also for guests as well to come in and focus on your media and public relations strategy. Best way to get involved, if you're not a member, is join our private LinkedIn network. Can't show it because I'm not logged in, but you can request to join our private group on LinkedIn. That's where we put out announcements about each of these upcoming events. It's not promotional. It's giving you an opportunity to be an influencer, which means getting up into these media opportunities and influencing the program. Down below are links to register for all of these things. These 3 at the bottom are all Eventbrite registrations. That'll send you an email confirmation. Put it in your calendar as well and get you access to these things. Everything I'm showing you, you can taste for free for a period of time, and then you can learn about the premium membership opportunities as well. So we are done for the day. Thanks again to Jeremiah, Ron, and Lance. And oops, I got to press the right button here. I must have been showing the wrong screen. But thanks again to everybody and for tuning in for today. I am Ryan Girardi and signing off. And have a great rest of the day, great rest of the week, and we'll see you next month. Take care, everybody.